Today we'll talk a bit about RRR. Came out 2022, so last year, directed by S.S. Rajamouli, and apparently the title RRR, it comes from the fact that it is the coming together of director, whose last name starts with R, and the two stars, Ram and Rama. And that is why it is titled RRR. Because yeah, India has the SAR system deeply implemented into their cinema, and these two guys are just like the top echelon. They're the main men in all of Bollywood. And I mean, yeah, they're so good in the movie. I especially liked Ram. Dude, his mustache is so sick. And I think my favorite scene, it could even be like one of my favorite scenes from any movie this year, is the scene near the very beginning. There's like an uproar at this like British building in India, and he's one of the guards. There's like so many people there. There's one guy who throws a rock and he breaks this frame with a picture in it. And then the governor's like, go get that man. And this guy single-handedly goes through this like mob of thousands of people and just finds this guy. Well, the action isn't like it's like, it is over the top that he's taking on all these people, but the choreography works so well when he's taking them on. And it was so satisfying to watch. It was a great introduction to the movie. And I think that's my favorite scene in the movie. It was so epic. I loved that part. But in general, spoiler-free talk at first here. I think that this movie is a lot of fun. It is very silly. I know so many people were telling me, oh, you have to watch this movie. It's like, yeah, one of the best movies of the year. One of my friends who's very, very big into film, he's quite snobby, I'll say that. He doesn't mind me saying that, I know. This is his favorite movie of the year. And so I was like, okay, yeah, gotta go see it. I think it is really, really good, and it is such a definitive moment in Indian cinema history, whereas it's getting such international recognition, and it's really, really great to see. It is a great movie, but it is very silly. It's like, honestly, what an ideal Marvel movie would be. It nails the silliness so well. It nails the spectacle so well. Their friendship, their bromance is so awesome to see. It's really, really good. But again, there is some like, just like in Marvel movies, there are some moments where it's like, okay, you roll your eyes a bit, and some of the CGI stuff that goes on. Like I said, yeah, a guy using a motorcycle as a baseball bat, some of the absurd moments that happen in this. But again, everyone loves Marvel movies, and I think so many people are going to love this movie. Everyone does love this movie. Yeah, like I don't think there's a single negative review that I've heard from people in my circle. So, but spoiler-free talk, yeah, again, I think that the two characters, the main characters in this, carry the film. They are absolutely incredible. Again, yeah, they're stars. They're awesome. And the main conflict is just so dramatized. I don't know. I feel like I said those two words like last stream I did. Dramatized. I don't know which one's correct. But it's so melodramatic, but like in a good way. And the twist at the halfway point is awesome. I really loved it. Honestly, I watched this thing in 3 installments. I watched the first half of it, and then I didn't know how much time to pass. It got to the halfway point. I was like, well, are we nearing the end right here? And it was halfway through, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I took a break. I came back to it, and I think I watched about like an hour, or maybe not an hour, maybe like 50 minutes more of it. Then I took another small break and watched the rest like half an hour or something. But again, the pacing is really, really good. I think, again, like a lot of these really long movies, some of the middle stuff, it could have been trimmed down here and there, but there's so much going on in this movie, and again, everything revolves around these two characters, and each like set piece that they go to is definitive and epic. Like I can remember, if I just say like the locations without spoiling anything, yeah, we have the very beginning with that riot that's happening at that British building. I don't even know what building it is. We have the riot that's happening at the British building. We have the scene on the bridge. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And then we have the scene at the party. The scene at the party, about halfway through. That is absolutely crazy. I mean, we just have the montage of them becoming friends. That itself is like its own set piece. There's so much. It's like, oh, it's so fun. And the song that was playing behind it, the lyrics play on the screen, and it's like, I maybe that's just like, yeah, a cultural difference of Bollywood, where it's like, it was kind of like the song was defining out the plot and like predicting what might happen in the rest of the plot. And I thought it was funny. And then you have so many of the backstories, the flashbacks were crazy. Like the one right after the halfway point where we see Ram's backstory, that was epic in itself, another epic set piece. And then we have, what else do we have? Then, I mean, yeah, just at the very end where they break the prison break, epic. And I mean, that kind of just led into the final act where we have, in the forest, a big showdown. It's just like set piece to set piece to set piece. Everything is so definitive, so unique, so different. And the camera in this movie is so dynamic. The direction is amazing, so energetic. And again, like, even if you just watch the trailer, there's just so many images. The purpose of the direction of this movie is to make these two guys look like absolute stars. And they are. They are absolute stars. And everything in this movie is trying to go for like that, kind of comic book look where every frame is just made so specifically to be catered to these two guys and just show off their coolness. And again, like I said before, the action is very over the top, very silly. A lot of the CGI is like very noticeable, especially at the halfway point where there are some animals. There's a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie where it's like, oh, none of these animals were harmed during the making of the movie. They were CGI. It like specified which animals weren't CGI. And it's like, yeah, we can tell. We can tell that they're CGI. But hey, that's okay. That doesn't really take back from it. But it was such a good time. I don't even think I really need to go into spoilers for this one. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I think, everyone should watch this movie. It's just so much fun, filled with energy. And like I said, it's a movie that has very definitive set pieces and uses them to make these guys feel like a star in a very melodramatic story that just is very satisfying. And I always say, maybe not on this live stream, but I usually run a filmmaker camp for kids during the summer, a summer camp. And I try to convince them to put a dance scene at the end of every movie. And a lot of the time there's some pushback. They revolt against me and they're like, oh no, we don't want to do a dance scene. But sometimes it goes really well. And I tell them that every good movie ends with a dance scene. And this movie ends with a dance scene. So I think there's some merit to that argument. But yeah, in general, I'm really happy I watched it. It is quite long. And sometimes, you'll roll your eyes. You'll laugh. You'll have a good time. You'll cry, maybe. Yeah, there could be some crying moments. It is brutal as well. I just want to say, this movie is brutal. Oh, one set piece that I forgot is when, this one is more of a spoiler. How do I say this without it being a spoiler? Where there's a bit of torture going on. And that scene is brutal as well. That scene's brutal. Some stuff with a tiger that's brutal. I mean, the very first scene where the British government comes in. I mean, it's the very first scene. He comes in and he steals a young girl from one of the villages. And just some of the violence in that very first scene is like also crazy. But yeah, it's a spectacle. It's a great movie. I'm really happy I watched it. There are a few other Indian movies that came out this year that I'm looking forward to watch as well. There's one called Ponniyin Selvan that I'm looking forward to watch. And one of my friends, he's seen it and he said he liked it better than RRR. So I know that one's an epic based on some book that was very famous there as well. So. And honestly, I've just learned a lot about the Indian cinema and the Bollywood system because so many movies in India there's so many different languages in India, and so many of these movies may not be accessible to so many different audiences. And this was one where all these three stars came together, the director and the two leads, and it kind of transcended that language barrier and that just barrier of seeing each language area of India represented. And so, yeah, that was cool to see as well. And the way I watched this movie, I watched it with, I forget the language that I watched it in. I watched it in Hindi. It was dubbed in Hindi because I believe the original language is Tagalog. Let me see. It should say under details here. Yeah, Telugu. And unfortunately, that version of the film, I don't know if it's really very accessible because on Netflix they had English, they had Hindi, and they had a couple other options that I know weren't the original language. I usually like to watch it in the original language with subtitles. That's ideal, of course. It started off playing with English dubbed, and I was like, no, I don't want to watch it like this. I'd rather have it subtitled than have the English dub. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like dubbing over movies is such a weird phenomenon. I'm pretty against it at this point. There's some movies, like, I'll watch a few Studio Ghibli movies dubbed over because animation, there is a bit more of that. It's not actually real people talking, and you don't see their mouths move. Whereas in this, even though I watched it in Hindi, I'd rather watch it in a language that I don't understand with subtitles than in English. Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, I'm very pro subtitle, and I think I would love to have just heard the original language, heard what these guys really sound like, and how the movie was meant to be made. But hey, it is what it is. Happy that I watched it, and I would highly recommend it. I think on my 2022 list, let me just check it here. I think I have it at about like 13 or something. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But hey, it was a good year. It was just a good year. And yeah, happy I watched it. Happy I watched RRR.